Here's a comparison, the paper flow versus the computer's information flow. It all starts with the wire machines, thousands of words chattering out every day. Words that have to be scanned and sorted, kept and tossed away. It's a process that never stops. With a computer, the words pass quietly into the central processing unit. No paper, no teletype, no mess, just an electronic file in a box. Getting the information out? Now it takes a wire editor who has to sort through literally yards of paper, ripping out what's needed, throwing away the rest. At least a 10-to-1 ratio of what's usable and what's scrap. The material kept is then put into cardboard files, and the editor writes up a synopsis so the rest of the staff knows briefly what's happening. With a computer, that whole scanning process takes place at the editor's desk. No more time-consuming trips to the wire room, no more cardboard files and synopses. The stories are sent to an electronic file, and the computer will then update that file with the latest information as soon as it comes in. And anyone with a terminal can read that file or can scan all of the incoming wires, again, as the stories arrive. When a 4 o'clock writer starts on a story now, he picks up the copy from the wire editor, takes it back to his desk, and begins work. If a 6 o'clock writer needs to work with that same story, or the 11 o'clock producer wants to see how a story is developing for a possible follow-up, they have to wait until the 4 o'clock writer is finished. And as often as not, that piece of paper somehow gets lost in the shuffle. With the computer, the story stays in the electronic file. The writer calls it up at his desk and writes the story. At that very same moment, a 6 o'clock writer can call up the same story, and so can anyone else who wants to see it. It's available to everyone, and it simply cannot get lost. Since there are a lot of people who have to deal with a finished script, writing a story starts with a script book, 6 pages, with carbon paper go into the typewriter. Slug, date, show, writer, talent, graphic, tape information go on the left. Then the creative copy process starts on the right. And when the words don't come out just right, or when the story changes, there are 2 ways to fix things. Here's one. And the other, scratch it out, pencil in the changes, and hope the copy doesn't get too messy to read. With a computer, the blank heading comes up automatically. The writer fills in those blanks just once. Once the story is written, it can be changed, updated, re-edited, modified to an endless degree without ever having to start over. Words, lines, entire blocks of copy can be moved about. Additions can be made and parts deleted, all electronically. The final copy is clean, clear, and correct. Now, when that copy is finished, it goes to the producer's desk for approval. The producer can take it as it is, make some more pencil scratch changes, or send it back to start the process all over again. With a computer, the options are increased. The producer calls up the copy on the terminal while the writer goes on with another story. Changes can be made electronically, quickly. Words, phrases, whole paragraphs can be added or deleted, all with just a few quick keystrokes, and it all comes out clean. From the producer's desk, the old piece of paper copy goes to the production assistant. Someone has to see to it that those 6 copies are separated and distributed to the right people. It's like dealing out a hand of poker with the producer allowed the final cut. Under a computer system, as soon as that script is sent to the show file, a backup copy is printed out. That's the only time paper enters the process, and then only in a backup roll. The real advantage there, you only print out what you actually use. There's no waste. The computer can also present that script in exactly the proper form for all of the various functions. The anchors get a clean copy with no strikeovers. They can go ahead and mark it exactly as they do now, except they do it electronically, adding emphasis, making minor changes for readability, adding transition lines, and it all comes out clean. Their changes are reflected on every other copy. The director can write in video instructions, add roll cues and graphic information, and his markings only show up on his copy. They don't get in the way of anyone else who has to use the script. When it goes on the air now, it takes an artful anchor to dodge around all the marks and runoffs to read the story smoothly. Changes can be made only with great difficulty and by coordinating with all the people who hold a script. With a computer, here's what the anchor will see in the teleprompter. Clean, clear copy, always perfectly centered on the screen. And the producer has the opportunity to change the words up to the moment they're spoken. There are about 26 of them scattered on desktops on the newsroom anchor desk, built into the console in front of the producer in the control room. 35 more to come at the first of the year. Lots of blinking computer terminals next to typewriters, and the typewriters have been given their notice. Think of the computer as the answer man, a giant, constantly changing fat file of information on what's happening in the newsroom and in the world. When I sign on in the morning, I can tap into that information. I can retrieve messages left for me overnight. I can call up the overnight report left by the late assignment editor. Tells me about the sick and wounded, the broken equipment, and even some story ideas. I can check the monitor report, the competition's late news rundown. The story log holds each story we plan to cover that day and a complete list of the reporters and crews available to cover them. I can check each story individually. I can find out when it will be shot, when it's due in, which newscast it's aimed for. I can see the reporter and crew assigned, see who came up with the idea. I can see the story focus and read all the detail. I can add suggestions or make changes.
Who did it yesterday? Didion did. He's not.
Didion did it.
You don't know something. Barry?
The morning story meeting used to be a formal affair with lots of paper and a big conference table. Now we gather around a computer terminal.
Maybe they ought to cover both angles on that?
Yeah, and I don't know yet. I got to get back on the desk.
So that's a potential live shot, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Maybe.
All day, as stories change or new ones happen, the computer is constantly updated. It's all right there, available to anyone who needs to know. Carl Twentier is the assistant news director.
It's wonderful. We run 30 reporters, 20-plus crews here, a bureau in Washington, a bureau in Sacramento, a bureau in San Jose. And there's simply no way, without the assistance that a computer gives you, to have the faintest idea what the hell's going on with all those people and all that amount of activity. I ran the desk here before with about half as many people, and I couldn't keep up. And now it really is the only way.
Well, there's lots more. For example, everyone has a complete file of all the wires, even the network wire for news feeds and scripts and program changes. I can buzz through the wires reading a brief abstract, opening only the stories I want to read completely. And if I want to find a story, the computer will scan the slug lines of 12 hours of wire copy in seconds. I can ask it to find a single word, and the computer will read every word in the file. I've asked for Reagan here, and it finds a story on lasers with Reagan mentioned in the copy. When a bulletin or urgent moves, every terminal in use beeps and announces the story. 2 keys will bring it up on my terminal. Our bureaus from Washington to San Jose can use the computer just as if they were in the newsroom with all the information we have. We're on the verge of writing all the news copy in the computer, of producing newscasts there with instant back timing, of playing back scripts direct to teleprompter. We're looking into remote use with studio teleprompter available at a distant live shot. We're tying in the character generator for direct entry. And we keep thinking of new ideas every day.
This is the noisy newsroom of Saturday morning memories. Clattering typewriters, editors slashing copy with thick black pencils.
Where's the rest of this story?
This is the newsroom of today. The CBS newsroom in New York, to be precise. Pretty much the same scene of a decade ago. This is also the newsroom of today. More important, it is the newsroom of tomorrow. No clatter of typewriters or wire machines or even much of thick black pencils. Since last November, KCBS, the all-news radio station in San Francisco, has been operating an electronic newsroom, a computer-controlled system for writing, editing, storing, and retrieving news stories that is almost certainly going to take over broadcast news operations in the coming decade. If you're a fan of the green eye-shade, battered old L.C. Smith typewriter school of journalism, you might not want to look.
I'm looking for some facts on the afternoon gold and how it affected money. So I've typed in there that I want money, and I'm asking it. And here it tells me that here's the story that came in at 30 minutes past the hour. It runs 3 minutes in length. If I wanted to read the whole thing, I'll go down to the small size, split my screen, put it on this side, pull the whole thing out.
Larry Cooper, Associate News Director of KCBS, helped design and supervise the installation of the $120,000 operation. In a business where speed is of the essence, the electronic newsroom has cut several steps off the traditional process of news preparation. A reporter with a computer terminal doesn't ask for rewrite. What he types from the field appears instantly on the screen in the newsroom. and it can appear just as fast in front of the anchor in the broadcast booth.
Typical newsroom right now, when a bulletin comes in on the wire has to type it out, and the wire goes bing, bing, bing with the bells telling you that the bulletin is there. The person who's taking care of the wires has to go into the wire that rang at it, find that wire, rip the item off the wire, take that to the editor. The editor looks at it and says, yes, this is a bulletin. Get this on the air. Take that, run it into the booth. Then the person on the air reads it. Now, when a bulletin comes in, flashes here on the computer terminal. The person in the booth sees that it's flashing, asks for it, and reads the bulletin.
Although some reporters in some newsrooms have complained of everything from threats to privacy to cataracts, disputes which have helped make plots for the Lou Grant television show, the biggest problem at KCBS seems to have been noise, the lack of it.
This is strange. This doesn't feel right. So we started thinking about that, and then we decided we needed something in the background to tell us that the computer was working. So we ran down to Radio Shack and for $2.50 bought this little thing that goes beep.
The story of changing technology, new ways of using television with games and computers, new ways of sending and receiving signals, video recorders and discs and satellites, isn't confined to what's happening to the viewer. It's already beginning to change the way that work is being done at this end of the signal. Gimme rewrite?